Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. A few days ago, I was doing a bit of research for my book about Troy and Brutus and his migration to Britain, and I found something quite interesting. Now, I don't think this point is significant enough to justify being in my book. It's not like some kind of amazing piece of definite evidence that the Trojans migrated to Britain or anything like that, but it's interesting enough, I think, to justify making a video about it. So I wanted to share it with you guys. So this whole idea, the whole idea of this point being interesting, is based on the modern theory that the Celts migrated to Britain. That's not to say that the whole population of the ancient Britons were Celts, because it's understood that they weren't, but clearly there was a Celtic migration to Britain at some point. So this ancient work, the Illyrian War by the writer Appian, this discusses the origin of the Celts. Now what he says is very interesting because he's actually focused on the Illyrians. So I'll read to you what he says. He says, "They say that the country, Illyria, received its name from Illyrius, the son of Polyphemus. For the Cyclops Polyphemus and his wife Galatea had 3 sons, Celtus, Illyrius, and Gallus, all of whom migrated from Sicily. And the nations called Celts, Illyrians, and Galatians took their origin from them." So it associates the Celts, the Illyrians, and the Galatians. It considers them to have shared an origin. So the Celts and the Galatians, that makes sense, because the Galatians really were just another Celtic group. But the Illyrians, that's a little bit more unusual, because the Illyrians aren't generally considered to be a Celtic group of people. But what is known is that from several centuries before this source was written, the Illyrians had undergone a Celticization process. In other words, they had been exposed to significant Celtic cultural influence. So although they weren't true Celts, by the time this was written, they would have been closely associated with them. So really, this is about the origin of the Celts, and it just associates the Illyrians with them because of the fact that by that time the Illyrians were rather Celtic. But really, it's about the origin of the Celts. So where does it place their origin? Well, it places their origin in Sicily. So that's interesting, because Sicily is just at the foot of Italy. It's in the Italic region. So according to this source, written centuries before the Historia Brittonum spoke of Brutus coming from Italy and migrating to Britain, we have this source here from the Roman era speaking about the Celts originating in Sicily, in the Italic region. So obviously, Sicily isn't the same as Italy. Sicily isn't Italy, but it is part of the Italic region. So it still places the origin of the Celts in the same general region of the Mediterranean as the later legends of Brutus coming from Italy. So obviously this needs to be combined with the modern understanding that the Celts migrated to Britain. So that's not to say that the Britons as a whole were entirely descended from Celts, because modern genetic research has shown that that's not the case, but there clearly was a Celtic migration of some kind in the Iron Age, which took Celtic culture and the Celtic language, and probably some Celtic tribes as well, into Britain. So when you combine that modern understanding of a Celtic migration to Britain with this ancient source, then it indicates that the Britons had an origin in Sicily, or at least according to this source. So that doesn't take it directly to Italy or directly to Troy, but it does take it to the same region that the Historia Britanniae and the Historia Brittonum place Brutus's origin, in Italy. But we can go even further than that, because this specifically connects it to Polyphemus and Galatea. Now, they obviously were mythological characters. Polyphemus was a Cyclops, and Galatea, I don't remember what exactly she was, but she was some kind of mythological creature as well. So this isn't a genuine descent, obviously. This is very mythological. But it associates the Celts having an origin in Sicily in their time. Now, they were placed in Greek chronology in the time of the Odyssey, because they actually, well, Polyphemus at least actually features in the Odyssey. He's the Cyclops that Odysseus interacts with. Now, the Odyssey, of course, is based a few years after the time of the Trojan War. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because in other records, they speak of the Trojans migrating to Sicily just after the time of the Trojan War. So Sicily was believed to have been settled by the Trojans. And as we've seen, according to this source about the origin of the Celts came from Sicily, and it connects them in a mythological way with these characters who lived shortly after the time of the Trojan War. So although it doesn't connect them directly to the Trojans, it does connect them to a land which was believed to have been settled by the Trojans at about the time in which it was believed to have been settled by the Trojans. So it doesn't confirm the story of Brutus migrating with fellow Trojan descendants from Italy. It doesn't confirm the connection to Troy, but it does show that there was this perception that the Celts had an origin somewhere in the Italic region in an area associated with the Trojans, an area which was believed to have been settled by the Trojans after the Trojan War. So it's not the same as the story of Brutus, but it does have the same kind of idea. So like I said, this isn't a major significant piece of evidence. It doesn't directly confirm the story of the Trojan War. So I haven't put it in my book, but I thought it's interesting enough to share with you guys. So let me know what you think of it, and if you know of any other piece of evidence which you think supports the story of the Trojan migration, then feel free to discuss that as well in the comments too. Thanks for watching. Until next time.